Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the nice crowd. My name is Cliff Weiner. I'm president of the POA. First on our agenda is we're going to stand for the pledge to the flag, and then a moment of silence for our first responders and our military personnel serving now and that have served. Thank you. Please be seated. Next on the agenda is the reading of our minutes from our secretary, Reb Benson. Reb?
Thank you, Cliff. Good evening, everybody. Great to see a big turnout like this. For the minutes, we try and keep it very short and sweet to try and cover from last month. So normally we follow a process of a call to order, go through some items. Last month we had the board of directors were read the oath for the coming year, and then all said they'd uphold that oath through the statements. Then we have some announcements. We'll do that again here today, so they're usually about the same. Then we have a question and answer period, and then we usually have then the speaker. So what I'm just going to cover is more those things related to that area. There was a question asked by a resident if the POA could look into erroneous water usage charges. He explained receiving a bill for 26,000 gallons of water use last month, though he's not here for 6 months, until recently when the water was turned off and the house checked, saying that he had heard others with similar issues in water companies saying it's not their problem. So the answer was Cliff and Dan, who is on our board and also on NSCUD, is going to take a look into that and get back to everyone on it. Our speaker was Mr. Philip Maggio, who really wasn't a speaker, but he was heads up Florida Department of Transportation. And then he introduced the other personnel that were here, and they were that dealt with the U.S. Highway 441 project. And then he turned it over to Mr. Don Brassett, the on-site manager, and he provided an update on that. So some of the key information from that was the project calls for widening US 441 from 4 to 6 lanes, 3 north and 3 south between Lake Ella Road on the south side and Avenida Central at Griffith Ave on the north side. It will include a bicycle lane and sidewalks. Project started on June 27th, 2020, and is about 68% complete with an estimated completion date of January 2024 at an estimated cost of $45.3 million. Southland Construction Incorporated is the contractor. Upcoming milestones include January 2023, the traffic shift into a new temporary asphalt in the median between East Hermoso Street and Avenida Central. January 2023, the second of the US 441 bridges will start demolition. I was just down there, so I see that they've already shifted the traffic over to start the demolition of that second bridge. July 2023, Griffin Ave Drive to East Hermoso Street will be complete. Late 2023, County Road 25 intersection will be complete. Mr. Brassett mentioned there have been challenges, especially since they must ensure traffic flow continues, so hence most construction has been at night or during the day in places where the flow is not impeded. For more information, you can go to www.cflroads.com and select project number 2383951 to see what's currently going on. Some pertinent questions were asked. Will there be 3 lanes with turn lanes in the narrow area between Lady Lake by the Wawa there in 466? Answer, yes, 3 full lanes each way with turn lanes plus a bike path and sidewalks. Why take down the bridge over County Road 25? Answer, the bridge is old. Either it needed to be replaced or bring it down to the regular grade of the road below. And then add an intersection, and that was cheaper to do. Won't there be excess traffic on CR 25 at the intersection when done? Answer, do not think so given the volume, and they'll do proper traffic signaling through that area to make sure that 441 has the most flow traffic going. Are federal funds involved, and is there incentive to finish early? The answer was yes and no. There are federal funds involved, but no incentive to finish early, but the contractor must finish on time. And that was basically about it.
Thanks, Rep. I just want to make one statement. He said there was a resident here that had a question about his water. I did attend the NSCOD meeting. The resident was there along with Dan Warren, who's on my board, who happens to be on that board. They are looking into it, and hopefully we get a satisfactory resolution to the issue. But I'm asking anybody that's either watching this, because we live stream our meetings, or in the audience, if you've had the same problem, please send me an email with your name and address. I would like to get these all taken care of. It's happened more than once in my 20 years here in the villages, and we need to stop it. So hopefully we're going to get something done. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Second? All in favor? All opposed? Passed. Next is our treasurer's report. Our treasurer is not here. He's on vacation. So our vice president is going to read, hopefully, the treasurer's report.
If I can see, I'm just going to be acting here. I'm acting treasurer. Okay, we had a excellent month. Our revenues were $53,040, and our expenses were $20,864. So for the month, we had a net profit of $32,170, which was great because now for the entire year, it reduced our loss to only $2,241. So that's kind of typical. Typically, December is a good month because people start paying their dues for the future year. So we had a small loss of $22.41, which brought our net operating cash to $153,708. Thank you.
Thanks, Assistant Treasurer. Next, come on, Ken. Next, our membership chairman's going to come up and talk. We're going to try something new, so I think it's important that you guys listen to this, and hopefully it's going to work. We always are trying to increase our membership. So,
thank you. Basically, starting this evening, we're starting a new program so that we are not running in arrears on any of our costs, because printing costs and delivery costs and things like that have gone up. And in order to ensure that you get a bulletin sent to your house and the services that we've pledged through the POA, we're starting an incentive program to get new members into the POA. So starting this evening, any new member that signed up this evening, that is a new member that's never been a member before, we're going to send out with the membership cards a POA bonus card, which is going to entitle you to 18 vendors throughout the villages where you'll have a discount, and this will be on top of the discount partners that are already in the system. The majority of these that are going to be on the bonus card are going to be restaurants and vendors that you would use numerous times in the course of the year. And for those that renewed their membership or have been members previously, if you bring in a friend or neighbor or whatever that would like to join the POA as a new member, you will also get one of these POA membership cards. So we're really interested in getting new members so that all the residents in the villages can benefit by what we do. Thank you.
I just want to say, this is the same card that the high school and other groups sell for $10. We are giving it to you as a membership, and they usually have 12 vendors. We have 18. So it's a win-win for everybody. Hopefully it's a win-win for the POA. Thank you, Ken. As I said before, we video record our meetings, so you can go on our Facebook page, POA of the Villages, and watch this meeting live, or you can go tomorrow and watch it. It will be posted on our website tomorrow, so you can always see it. We have about 145 people here tonight, so this is a really nice turnout. As you know, January 1st, we had to raise our dues to $15. They've been $10 since 1975. We thought it was time to raise it because all of our costs have gone up. So with that being said, please, if you send in your dues, especially you're a new member, you send them in for $10. My database will not allow me to enter it, and I will be returning the check to you, as much as I hate to do that. $15, not a big deal. Next on our program is Community Watch has come up with a new program, which I think is really kind of cool. So I'm going to have Chief Nehemiah Wolf from the Community Watch Department come up and explain it to you. It's called the CHIRP program. We're going to get behind it and hope we can do the same thing we do with that we do with the Vial of Life. Chief Wolf?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you for the opportunity to be here at POA tonight and to address your crowd. Let me just give you just a little bit about myself. Nehemiah Wolf, Chief of Community Watch or Director of Community Watch. By show of hands, how many in this room know who I am or who know of me? Okay, all right, large majority. But for the benefit of those who don't, I spent 30 years with the Sumter County Sheriff's Office. Out of those 30 years, I spent 14 years here in the Villages as the district commander over all law enforcement services for Sheriff Farmer. I retired, thought I was ready to retire. I stepped out for about 16 months, and I went about crazy. Wasn't ready for that. So I joined Community Watch after working with those guys and understanding them and understanding how vitally important that department is to this community and what they contribute in ways that they enhance the lives of our village residents in so many ways that you don't even know. I really thought after 14 years of working with them and all other interlocal governments here in the Villages, I knew everything I needed to know about Community Watch until the day I walked in as the director. And I found out that I didn't know half of what I thought I knew. It's an awesome group of people. Over 90% of my staff are you, the village residents. And I am honored to lead that group of people. They're really, really good, hardworking people. With that said, I am coming up on the 6th year. May will be my 6th year as director. That gives me 20 years of experience of dealing with not only local government, but all local government entities as it relates to the Villages. So that is quite a record for myself. Pat myself on the back. No, joking. I am a Florida native, born and raised Oklahoma. You can relate to that? Absolutely, absolutely. But I thought it was important that I share at least that much so that you'll understand where I'm coming from. And I am very, very passionate about what I'm about to offer you. A little bit over a year ago, I had a driver driving around on patrol in the wee hours of the night. It was in April. It was on April 6th. It was 60 degrees outside, 3 o'clock in the morning. He turns down a very short street on the historical side that had a cul-de-sac. As he goes around that cul-de-sac, he heard something. And I said, wow, he heard something. He didn't see, but he heard. 60 degrees, window down. He must be from up north because 60 degrees, I'm freezing. But Jose Alvarez thought he heard something, so he went around that cul-de-sac a second time. What he saw in front of a car was what he thought was someone's feet. So he stopped, he got out, he went up, and he found this young lady laying on the ground on the concrete. She had gone out to dinner with her daughter early that evening, came home around 8:30, went in, set her purse down, her keys, her alert emergency button on the counter, remembered there was something in the car and walked outside to retrieve it, and she tripped and fell. That was around 9 o'clock, and he did not discover her until 3 a.m. She said that she landed in her rose garden. She yelled and screamed for help. She thought if she repositioned herself, so she started rolling because she couldn't get up. She thought someone would hear her, but she ended up on the cold concrete. She couldn't get up, and she screamed until she basically lost her voice. As a result of this, I started thinking the district prides itself on its core values: hard work, hospitality, stewardship, innovation, and creativity. what other service can we provide to our residents? What can we do to add another layer of protection? I started thinking about how active this community is. I remember when I first came up as district commander, they told me, oh, don't worry, you go into a retirement community. Lot of activity going on here in the villages. There's a lot of very active residents. What I found was that there are many people riding their bicycles, they're out walking, they're exercising, they're working out in their yards, they're on the go quite a bit. I started looking at what programs were available around the United States in the form of a deterrent, a crime deterrent, or a distress signal. I saw where there are several universities throughout the United States that uses a whistle as a distress signal for students on campus who may be lost, for students on campus who may want to possibly warn off a possible intruder, for someone who wants to scare off an animal. I started looking at the U.S. Coast Guard, knowing that they have whistles that will emit 120 decibels. I said, that is a very, very loud sound. How can we incorporate that? My thought was that if I can come up with a program that will provide an opportunity for our residents to have a whistle on them at all times. I attached it to a lariat, and I created, or my department created, the instructions for how to use that. It's a distress call. All those years of service with the sheriff's office, many, many times I was asked, Lieutenant Wolf, what can we do as residents to help you and law enforcement keep this community safe? As Director of Community Watch, I've been asked a number of times, what can we do as residents to help? Well, this program was developed in twofold. The first one, if you are in distress, you're out walking, exercising, if you're working in your garden, you have an issue and you can't get up, if you can be heard, you can be rescued. It's that simple. That's one part. The other part of that program is if you, as a resident, hear a whistle being blown in the sequence in which described on this placard, and it's very simple, blow into it, normal breathing for 3 seconds, and then stop. And then repeat that 2 other times. I've been asked, well, Chief Wolf, how loud is the whistle? The whistle we found will emit 90 decibels using normal breathing. You don't have to blow very hard, just normal breathing. You think I should demonstrate? Yeah. Oh, okay. Three seconds, stop, repeat it 3 other times. Give that sound, give the whistle or the sound time enough to travel. If you hear it being blown in that sequence, you as residents, I ask that you be empowered to do something. If you don't want to go look yourself, pick up the phone, call Community Watch, call law enforcement. We still meet with law enforcement on a quarterly basis. Our meeting is tomorrow. This will be shared with them. They have already been notified as of October 4th, National Night Out. We kicked this program off. Since then, we have given out over 4,500 whistles to residents voluntarily. If you have a resident lifestyle club or group and you would like a member of my team to come and explain this program to you, we will be more than happy to do that. Again, if you can be heard, you can be rescued. Thank you very much.
By the way, there's a bunch of them. He brought me a whole bunch. We have them on the back table. Well, there's some in the bag. Put them out, please. And we will be presenting this every month until I get rid of at least these 300, and then I go back and get some more from them because I'm going to help them. Ma'am, hold on one second. Our meetings are recorded, so I need you to speak into a microphone.
So I've passed out a whole bunch, maybe over almost 200 to the Parkinson group. But the thing that I've been telling them to do is to put their address label on your that little green placard, and also put in magic marker, or however you want to write it, to a person to contact, because if you find somebody, you don't know who that person is, and if they can't talk to you, then what are you going to do?
Thank you. Well, Jerry, you need to get a mic if we're, I say it. I'm old, but not that.
Chief, I'm Colonel Phil Bates, and I do wear a life alert. Is there a way, this one, watch band, is there a way to slip up on these cell towers a environment that can read this, hear it?
I don't believe the crowd heard your question. If you want to speak into the mic, I'll address it.
Could you install or accommodate the cell towers to hear my life alert signal that now goes to a private company?
I would say, unfortunately, that will not fall under the purview of Community Watch. We are district government, a department within district government. I would encourage you, whatever county that you live in, to inquire at your local government entity.
Ma'am, we'll take questions when it comes. Ma'am, we will let you talk in a few minutes. I have a program to continue. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
With that thought, Viola Life, Sumter County Sheriff's puts this out, okay? I've been doing this now for about 2 years. What you do goes along with Chief Wolf. What you do is you take this sheet of papers, 2 sheets. Second sheet's got a place for you to put all your medical information and your doctors. You fold it up and put it in that Viola Life. You put one green sticker on your front door. You put the other green sticker on the front of your refrigerator. When the EMTs come, they see that green sticker on the front door, they're not going to ask you any questions. They're going to go right to the refrigerator. They're going to have all the information they need, and you are going to save precious, precious seconds, and you're not going to have to answer any questions. So I urge you all, we have a whole bunch of them. Please take 1 or 2 for both you and your spouse. I know from personal experience with my wife, it works. So please, please, please continue to get them. Next, at the back table, we have our friends from Suncool, Seniors versus Crime, Hospital Auxiliary, Realty Execs, and I think that's it. I could be wrong. If I missed you, raise your hand. Okay, next is our cash raffle. We give away 3 $30 prizes. I'm going to read with my glasses, I will read the last 4 numbers. 4625, 4625. Okay. Next one, 4479. Right here, Jerry, right here, this gentleman. $4623.
I can get more.
Okay. Jerry, you want to get a microphone? It's time for our open forum. First thing I want you to do is go over to that lady that's sitting on the side and let her say what she wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention, so I went to our postal station, and a lady was getting out of her car, and she was in a walker. And I said, would you like one of those whistles? And then she told me a story. I don't know where she was from, but there was a person that their car went off the road, and they were in a ditch, and they happened to have a whistle. And I think after 3 days, someone was coming along, I suppose a county worker, and he heard that whistle and rescued that person. My other suggestion, if you don't need that whistle, put it in your car, because I think that's a good place to have it. The other thing is, you said you have the
File of life?
File of life. The other counties have something called, I think, the file of life. And it's something that and it'd be like Marion and Lake County have the same one. And
Correct.
you just stick that on your refrigerator. Yeah, thank you.
But 99% of our residents live in Sumter County. Any other questions or comments you want to make? Raise your hand. If I don't have an answer, I will try and get one for you. I know there's got to be more. None? Okay.
Save them for later.
I gave you all your chance. Next month, our speaker will be our district manager, Kenny Blocker, and our new, and I say new because at 5 o'clock this afternoon I was informed we now have a new fire chief. Chief Kane is retiring after 20 years. And Bruce Twitz has been appointed as fire chief. He was the deputy. Is that correct, Nehemiah? Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not giving out bad information. So hopefully he will be here with Kenny Blocker. In March, it'll be Cheryl Chestnut from the Villages Hospital, which is always an interesting topic. And that's as far as we have to go. We have somebody planned all the way through August or September already. So now it's time for our speaker. Oh, there he is. The reason we're having this speaker is because I thought this was a really interesting topic. I want to know where our stuff is going and what's happening to it. So Patrick Walsh from Covanta is here, and let's hope that we give him the attention he deserves, and we're going to get a great presentation. Patrick, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for giving me the time to come and talk with you folks. I've got to get a little plug back in. I wanted to get rid of that trip hazard here because the cord was sticking out. Get the video plugged in. One of the things that we do at Covanta is we start every meeting with a safety contact, because we are a power plant, we are an operating industrial facility, and with all the discussions that came with community watch and all that, this is a more overarching safety contact that I'd like to talk about. Question: how many military veterans are in the room? Firstly, thank you. I was honored to take part this weekend in an event to benefit the Navy SEAL Foundation. It's called the Tampa Bay Frogman Swim. A friend of mine has been doing this swim for 12 years now. They swim from Candy Beach across Hillsborough Bay to the Tampa Peninsula. It's a 3.5-mile open water swim in 58-degree water with currents and waves and wind. And look at me, I don't do that swim. I'm a support kayaker for my friend's daughter, who is 17 years old, did her first swim at 15 years old. There's about 450 swimmers that showed up to Gandy Beach at 5:45 a.m. on Sunday morning when it was 37 degrees out, and got into 58-degree water and swam 3.5 miles. And 94% of all the money that they generate from this event goes directly to the families of Navy SEALs who've been killed in action or killed in training. Sorry. Very, very emotional. But I just want to thank, I never had the opportunity to serve. I was physically disqualified. I was going to go to Annapolis and didn't get the opportunity to. But I want to thank all of you for protecting our nation's safety. So thank you very much. So that's my safety contact. Quick question. So I work for a company called Covanta. How many people in the room know who Covanta is or what Covanta does? Okay, so 10%, somewhere in there. Covanta is the largest waste-to-energy corporation in North America. We operate 48 waste-to-energy facilities throughout the United States, Canada, Hawaii. We have another 2 operating plants in the UK with an additional 4 under construction as we speak. So instead of sending the village's trash to a landfill where it could potentially generate methane, which is an extremely volatile and harmful greenhouse gas, the trash from the villages comes to a facility like mine in beautiful downtown Oklahoma, Florida, where we use it as fuel to heat up boilers, spin a turbine generator, and generate electricity. So back in 2018-19, when the NSCUD board was considering what to do when their contracts with their existing providers expired, we started talking. And one of the things is that the current program that they were on was all the trash was being picked up, and the recyclables that were being picked up separately. The recyclables were going to a recycling facility in downtown Tampa, Florida. But then what happened is the recycling market basically collapsed. So whereas for many, many years, there was actually a revenue stream from these recyclables, it now became almost 5 times more expensive to recycle the material as opposed to taking it to a landfill. Part 2 of that equation was that the trash that was all being picked up here in the villages went to a local transfer station in Wildwood, 3.5 miles away, but that trash was then put on a transfer truck and driven 165 miles to a landfill in Georgia. So the thought of the village's board was, we want to be as sustainable as possible, as green as possible, and when we analyzed the carbon footprint of the entire process, that tractor trailer that's going back and forth to a landfill in Georgia, the carbon footprint of that trip alone far outweighed the rest of the entire process. So we started talking, and our facility is in Oklahoma, Florida, which is about 11 to 14 miles away, so it's a little bit more windshield time for each of the trucks. However, when we looked at the overall carbon footprint, it was significantly lower to bring the material to a facility like ours as opposed to sending it into another state. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show a very brief video. It kind of explains the process, basically explains the process from start to finish of waste to energy. And then I have a PowerPoint presentation, and then I will take questions and answers afterwards. So this, we're going to have to rewind here.
We're Covanta, a world leader in providing sustainable waste and energy solutions to municipalities, businesses, and industries. If you've ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes at one of our energy from waste facilities, we'd love to show you. We're proud of our modern plants and the people who work here. So come on in. Once trucks arrive, they are weighed and checked in before heading inside to the tipping hall. The waste is unloaded onto the tipping floor and visually inspected for any unacceptable items, which are removed for separate recycling or proper disposal. Waste is then pushed into a storage pit and thoroughly mixed before being loaded into bins, which we call hoppers, where it travels to the combustion chamber. The tipping and waste storage areas are maintained under negative air pressure to contain dust and odors.
Remember that, negative air pressure.
Waste is combusted at extremely high temperatures in a self-sustaining process at approximately 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. A typical hopper load is completely combusted in 1 to 2 hours. As waste is burned, the heat converts water in the steel tube-lined walls into steam that rises through boiler tubes where it is superheated. The steam turns a turbine-driven generator to produce electricity, or may sometimes be used directly for heating or industrial processes. The electricity produced by the turbine generator is exported to local utilities for use in homes and businesses. Each ton of waste can generate 550 to 700 kilowatt hours of electricity. Steam from the process is condensed back into water and returned to the boiler tubes, making it an efficient, closed-loop system. After combustion, the volume of waste is reduced by 90%, leaving an inert ash and metal. Remaining ash is beneficially reused or landfilled as non-hazardous waste. Ferrous metals such as iron and steel are recovered using a rotating drum magnet, and non-ferrous metals like aluminum and copper are separated by an eddy current system. Collected metal is sold to be made into new products. State-of-the-art air pollution control equipment ensures that emissions are well below limits to be fully protective of human health and the environment. We neutralize acid gases using lime in a scrubber reactor and inject activated carbon for heavy metal control. We control emissions of particulate matter primarily through a bag house, which employs thousands of fabric filter bags. All flue gas must pass through the bags before exiting through the stack. Throughout this process, the control room closely monitors emissions through a real-time continuous emission monitoring system, controls steam flow, and a number of other automated systems inside the facility. Covanta is committed to providing sustainable waste and energy solutions to ensure no waste is ever wasted. At Covanta, we believe the materials discarded every day should be utilized to their fullest potential to preserve the world's valuable resources and generate clean energy for our communities and the world we live in. This is how Covanta is powering today and protecting tomorrow.
I try to stop that right on time because then you usually get a YouTube ad that is not necessarily appropriate for everybody in the room. So that's a real basic, very, very quick overview of the process itself. Right now, we have 48 operating facilities throughout the United States. The facility here in Oklahoma that we use is one of the smaller ones throughout the fleet. But again, it's actually, the number up there is 45. It's actually 48 right now because we just picked up a couple of other ones. We handle about 20 million tons of waste throughout the fleet. We generate enough megawatt hours to power about 10 million homes, and we recycle over 600,000 tons of metals. All these metals are recovered post-combustion. So everything that you put in that same can, we pick up the metals in the ash after it's gone through the furnace. All the ferrous and non-ferrous metals. So 600,000 tons of metal, you're talking about six Golden Gate bridges every year is how much we recover. The lake facility itself, it's in beautiful downtown Oklahoma, Florida. And for those of you who did not know, and the gentleman from the Community Watch Association may know, is that back in the early 1900s, Oklahoma was actually the largest city in the state of Florida. It extended from Ocala all the way down to the northern end of Hillsborough County. And the reason why is because all the rail hubs stopped in Oklahoma. So all the produce farmers from South Florida, if they wanted to get their product to market, they had to get their product to Oklahoma, Florida. And so saloons, hotels, everything were located right in Oklahoma. Now it's a one-stoplight town, pretty much. We built the facility with a public-private partnership with Lake County. First fire was in March of 1991. So we have processed over, now that 3.8 million number is probably a little bit over 4 million. We've processed 4 million tons just at that one facility. We process 528 tons per day, which equates to about 165,000 tons a year. So the total volume that we get from the villages between the NSCUD volume and all the rest of the districts that are south of 44 is probably right about 80,000 tons. So it's about 50% of the overall fuel volume that comes into our facility. We generate 14.5 megawatts per hour of electricity. We are currently providing 10 megawatts of that electricity to the city of Winter Park. Part of this entire sustainability plan that we started discussing with the villages several years ago is eventually, once this power purchase agreement expires, the idea is that we sell the power back to the villages so we can kind of close that environmental loop and say the village's garbage is generating their electricity. Once again, basically the process itself is we generate about 500 to 750 kilowatt hours of energy per ton of trash that comes into the facility. We're recovering about 50 pounds of recycled metal per ton. And then one of the things is the ash itself is now 10% of the original volume of what comes in the front door. So a facility like ours, everybody's familiar with Spaceship Earth at Epcot Center, the big geosphere in the middle. So the total volume that comes into to the lake facility is equivalent to about 3.5 of those Spaceship Earths. We reduce that down to about a third of one Spaceship Earth. So from a volume perspective, and now think about the state of Florida. It's a very flat state, right? There are 11 energy from waste facilities in the state of Florida. So for the last 30 years, if all that trash was going to landfills throughout the state of Florida, I joke about it, but it would no longer be a flat state. You'd have landfill mountains everywhere you looked. The weight is reduced by about 75%, so the ash is very dense and very heavy. And one of the things that we are concentrating on very heavily right now in our research and development department, and our Pasco County, Florida facility was the first one to get approval from the Florida DOT to use the ash as road base as a replacement for virgin lime rock. So now, we're currently at Lake, we're using it as alternative daily cover for a landfill. So the landfills have to use either 6 inches of lime, sand, mulch, or clay to cover what goes in the landfill that day. We send ours to a landfill to replace that. So once again, you're not mining virgin resources to use as daily cover at a landfill. They're using our ash instead. But the Pasco facility, like I said, it's the first one that's gotten permission from the Florida DEP to use it as road base. And they've, over the last 3 years, they've used about 45,000 tons of ash to put underneath concrete roads throughout the landfill facility there. Just a couple quick facts. Energy from waste produces clean, reliable energy, and we produce more than enough electricity to power more than 1 million homes and generate 9 billion pounds of steam. The majority of our facilities do generate electricity. We do have a few that actually sell the high-pressure superheated steam directly to an industrial customer or an armory. So they do not have a turbine generator. They're not generating electricity. For example, our facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's an oil refinery right across the street. They would have to use natural gas-fired boilers to generate the steam that they need for their industrial processes. So they're conserving natural gas because they're using our steam instead. Once again, Florida has 10 energy from waste facilities, more than any other state in the United States. And you think about it. Where we stand right here, how far below my feet is the aquifer? 8 feet, maybe 10. You put all that trash into a hole in a landfill. Landfills have leachate. Rains on a landfill, that water goes through all that trash, and now you have hazardous leachate that needs to be handled. And the last thing we want it to do is get into our water supply. This is the solid waste management hierarchy for both the American and the European. Everybody's familiar with the 3 R's of recycling? Anyone? Reduce, reuse, recycle. The 4th one is us, recover energy from waste. And then the last option is what you can't recover energy from then goes to a landfill. Once again, as I said, we generate about 550 to 750 kilowatt hours per ton of waste that comes into a facility like ours. Even a landfill that recovers the methane that's generated, they're only generating about 10% of the electricity that we're generating from that same amount of material. Methane emissions, okay? One of the things about methane is initially 10 or 15 years ago, scientists thought that methane was probably 15 to 20 times more harmful to the ozone layer and the environment than carbon dioxide. The new findings is that it's probably closer to 80 to 84 times more harmful to the environment than carbon dioxide. So when you look at this chart, municipal solid waste is the number 3 largest global source of methane. The number 1 is enteric fermentation. I'm not sure if any of you know what that is. Cows. Yep. But again, the 3rd largest generator of methane is municipal solid waste that is basically degrading in a landfill. A facility like ours, do we generate carbon dioxide? Yes, we do, but we do not generate methane. Energy from waste is the only energy generation technology that is actually a net negative producer of greenhouse gases. So for every ton of material that comes into a facility like ours, there is 1 ton of greenhouse gases that is not being generated because it didn't go to a landfill. The US is way behind. There's a total of 84 energy from waste facilities throughout the United States. You look at a country like Japan, they have about 400. Europe has somewhere in their area of about 600 of these facilities. China is in the process of building 200 energy from waste facilities between now and 2035. Why? All of these countries don't have a whole lot of real estate. They don't have the room to just dig another hole. Island countries. We just built a facility in Ireland. We just built a facility in England. They don't have the real estate to just dig another hole and start dumping trash in it. Here in the United States, there's a whole bunch of real estate like that. The second piece of it is, if you look at these stats, and I don't know if my little red pointer is going to work. There we go. Okay. Country like Denmark, very dense, not a lot of open land. 3% of their trash goes to a landfill. United States, 70%. Germany, less than 1% of all of their trash goes to a landfill. Here's another reason why. They have governmental support. So, for example, if you bring a ton of trash to my facility in Oak, Florida, it might cost you $60 a ton. Whereas if you bring it to some landfills in the area, it might cost you $40 a ton. In a country like Germany, Denmark, the facilities that we just built in Ireland and the UK, there is actually a landfill tax. So if you bring a ton of trash to an energy from waste facility in Ireland, say it's €100 per ton, you then pay an additional €100 per ton as a landfill tax. In Germany, that landfill tax is €1,200 per ton. So they are incentivizing the people to do the right thing environmentally because they're looking at the global picture and the long-term picture and what kind of world we're going to leave for our kids and our grandkids. Another thing, energy from waste from a real estate footprint is 0.7 acres per megawatt. Landfill gas, 27 acres. Solar, 8 acres. Wind, 18 acres. One of the things about an energy from waste facility is we run 24/7, 365 days a year. We're constantly putting energy on the grid. So we are part of the base load power supply. Solar, here in Florida, your average availability is about 16% because you have 12 hours of darkness, you have rain, you have cloudiness. So here in Florida and Arizona, you run about 16 to 18%. Anywhere else throughout the United States, you run about 12%. And most of the electricity that's generated by solar is in the middle of the day, which is at the lowest demand time. The battery storage capability hasn't caught up to where they could take that energy and hold it until everybody gets home from work at 6 o'clock at night when all the electricity is being used. So a lot of the electricity just goes onto the grid and never gets used. Emissions. This is very important. There's a reason why we don't call our facilities incinerators anymore. If somebody hears the word incinerator, what is the immediate picture in your mind? Big black smoke coming out of the smokestack, right? In 1990, the federal DEP enacted some MACT regulations. And now, if I remember this at 54 years old, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to remember a lot of this. I grew up in New York. My grandmother lived in the Bronx. She lived in an apartment building. My brothers and I would fight over who was going to take the trash bag out to that trash chute on the 6th floor of her apartment building, because you open the thing, you drop the bag down, and it hits the bottom, and you hear, whoo, and the incinerator kicks on, and it burns it up. This is back in the 70s. So when the DEP enacts these MACT regulations, which is called Maximum Achievable Control Technology, they actually put limits on the emissions of these incinerators. Well, all these apartment landlords, all these landowners in New York and Chicago and Boston, they're like, I'm in the property business. I'm not in the air pollution control business. So they shut them all down. Same thing with hospitals. Every hospital you went to had their own incinerator until these regulations came out. They said, we're in the healthcare business. We're not in the air pollution control business. They shut them all down. So now this problem becomes twofold, because all this trash that's being incinerated at local incinerators and individual incinerators all of a sudden is now going to landfills. So the volume going to landfills in the late 80s and early 90s went through the roof. The majority of the facilities that were built in the United States were built between 1985 and 1995 in order to be able to handle some of that volume. So now we look at the reduction of these items that are the most important that we track. Heavy metals, acid gases, particulate. The regulations that they put in place, we now have to abide by because we're the experts. We're the experts in the industry. We're in the air pollution control industry. We want to be stewards in the environment. So what comes out of our stacks? Realistically, 99.98% of it is water vapor, oxygen, CO2. 99.98. The other emissions equate to 0.004%. How small is that? 3.5 seconds out of a day, 20 minutes from a year, 4 strands of hair from a full head of hair. And I have a receding hairline, so it might be a little more than that. But dioxins are another concern. The dioxin emissions in the United States, 1987, waste to energy comprised 58% of it. Now, it's number 26 on the list. Look at the first 3. Landfill fires. There are landfill fires that have been burning for 5, 10, 15 years that cannot be put out because they're in the middle of the landfill. Forest fires, brush fires, controlled burns from development. We're familiar with that here in Florida for sure. Backyard burning, agricultural burning. So our air pollution controls have gotten, and we're constantly updating our technology in order to be able to get as good as possible and to capture as much as possible. Mercury is another big one. Energy from waste accounts for 0.8% of all the mercury emissions. Electrical generation, which means other sources of electrical generation, gas-fired plants, coal-fired plants. That's where most of your mercury is coming from. Energy from waste, from a life cycle emissions perspective, far below any other type of energy generation technology. These are some of the statistics as far as this is company-wide, how far below the federal emissions limits we are. Lead, cadmium, mercury, dioxins, in the high 90s, 98, 95% below the allowable emissions limits. And we get better every year. So we've improved. This is 2018 to 2020. We're continually driving those numbers further and further down as the technology improves. So how does Lake do? This is the facility where your material is going. Look at all those numbers on the right-hand side of the column. Every single number is in the high 90s as far as percentage below the allowable limit. The only one that we allow to get closer to the limit is nitrous oxide. The reason why that is we would have to have so much aqueous ammonia on hand that it becomes a very hazardous situation. Aqueous ammonia is a very hazardous chemical. So we try to use as little, and from a costing perspective as well, we try to use as little of it as possible. The lake facility itself. This is 2020. This is just our facility. You look at the landfill diversion equals almost 20,000 garbage trucks diverted from the landfill. 75 miles bumper to bumper. So from our facility in Oklahoma all the way down to University of Tampa. Power for enough for about 7,000, probably closer to 8,000 homes for a year. But again, we recover enough metal for 4,000 cars. 20 million aluminum cans, paperclip chain that wraps around the earth 7 times. I don't know who comes up with these stats, but they're kind of pretty cool. Again, here's our emissions as it relates to all of the other emitters in specific to Lake County. Our particulate matter reduction, 0.6%, 0.06%. Our particulate matter removal, we run between 99.5 and 99.8%. So again, when you drive by our plant, you see nothing coming out of the stack, unless it's cold. If it's cold, it's under about 45 degrees, the exit temperature of our flue gas is 287 degrees. So if you come by on a cooler day, you'll see a detached plume where about 12 to 14 feet off the top of the stack, that flue gas starts to condense. So it's basically steam. But most days when you drive by, there's nothing coming out of the stack. And here's a story that I tell all the time. So we are directly across the street from Arlington Ridge. which is a 1,600 home retirement community. And so I'm out by the perimeter of the property in our little employee smoking area. And a woman is on the other side of the fence walking her dog. Her name, she comes over, she walks over, she says, "Excuse me, do you work here?" I said, wait, well, yes, ma'am, I do. How can I help you? I had a Covanta shirt on, I'm inside the fence. And she said, "Well, my name is Jewel Wilson, and I live 4 houses inside the Arlington Ridge Gate, and I need you to come and pressure wash my driveway for me." "Okay, Jewel, I'm happy to throw my own personal pressure washer in the back of my car and come up to your house on a Saturday and pressure wash your driveway. Happy to. Do you mind me asking why?" She said, "Well, yes, my driveway is all black, and it's the smoke that's coming out of your smokestack is turning my driveway black." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Jewel, first of all," I said, "look up at the stack. Do you see anything coming out?" She says, "Well, no." "Are you running right now?" I said, "Yes, we run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week." I said, "It's possible that it's the middle of July and then it rains every day and it's 99% humidity out, and what's on your driveway is probably mildew. But there's also a sand dyeing facility halfway between your house and my facility. Could be that too, but that's another issue altogether." Here's the kicker. The next words that came out of her mouth were, "Well, who are we going to blame it on now?" I said, "Jewel, who's we?" She said, "Me and all my neighbors. We've been blaming it on you guys for 10 years. I said, "Oh," I said, "You know what?" I said, "Why don't you and your neighbors get together, come to see the facility so you really understand what we do here?" Well, and they ended up coming, and this is pre-pandemic. Unfortunately, we're still under pandemic safety protocols, so we're not doing public tours at the moment. But they came, and two of the husbands were retired engineers, had wonderful questions, and we toured the whole facility, and they walked out like, "This is amazing." But it was just, they didn't really, I mean, they lived there for 10 years, didn't really understand what we did. And just assumed, "Oh, that big smokestack that's up there, it must be them." So it's I relish the opportunity to come and talk to a group like yours, because we want to be transparent. We have nothing to hide. We post our emissions data on our website live. So it's something that we want people to truly understand the science behind what we do. And don't let fearmongers and people put false information out there. Our part of our mission statement is to be a good neighbor and a good steward of the environment. And as you can see, we are not generating the majority of any harmful emissions throughout the county. How does it relate to the villages? So I did this based on a contract year, because we started on October 1st of 2020. So through 2 years, 2 contract years, so through the end of last September, we handled almost 100,000 tons of the village's waste. So you're avoiding 100,000 tons of greenhouse gases. You're generating 52,000 megawatts of renewable energy, enough to power about 57,000 homes for a month, reducing the need for 24,000 tons of coal, or 4 million gallons of fuel oil. So it's something that, when you see the environmental impact of doing this, and understanding that we are stewarding this material in the best way possible from an environmental standpoint. Our safety record is second to none. For those of you who have ever been involved in industrial situation, we out of our 48 facilities, 43 of them are OSHA VPP Star certified, which is very difficult to do. It's a internally driven safety program that OSHA comes in for about 3 weeks and inspects the entire facility, every nook and cranny. And once you get certified, it's up to the employees to keep that going. The lake facility in itself, unfortunately, just had their first OSHA recordable incident in 15 years. And we're talking if somebody goes to the doctor and gets a Band-Aid or a stitch or a doctor gives them Tylenol, that is an OSHA recordable incident. And for 15 years, we had none of that. We have 38 permanent employees, and 20 of them have been there for 20 years or longer. So it's something that these guys are a family, and they want to send everybody home in the same condition they got that they came to work that day. Our efficiencies, our boiler availabilities continues to go up year over year over year because during our maintenance outages, we're continually improving our technology. These are just a couple other programs that we have. RX for Safety is basically pharmaceutical disposal. For many, many years, the CDC's direction was if you had unused pharmaceuticals or expired pharmaceuticals, what did they tell you to do? Flush them down the toilet. So we finally, after years and years of trying to get them to change that message, they've finally done it. Because in 2018, there's a study done. Anybody familiar with Puget Sound in Seattle, Vancouver area? One of the most beautiful areas and a beautiful body of waters that you'll ever experience in your lifetime. They caught 2,000 wild salmon in 2017 and tested them all. 99% of the salmon tested positive for blood pressure medication. 97% tested positive for some type of narcotic, some type of opioid, because the water treatment facilities do not have the technology to keep up and to be able to filter that stuff out. Right? It's just a double bonus, right? So, especially here in Florida and most of our facilities in the Northeast, they're fairly close to water. So anybody who captures derelict fishing equipment, derelict fishing nets, anything like that, we take it for free, and we dispose of it. That's the Fishing for Energy program. The RX for Safety, same thing. We work here in Florida. We work with 25 different law enforcement entities throughout the state of Florida. So any opioids, evidence, anything, any illegal substances, we handle all of that, so it can't possibly get out into further circulation. One of the things that I'm working on right now is we're trying to develop a program to have pharmaceutical drop-off boxes throughout the villages so that you don't have to wait for a drug take-back day. And put a couple of drop boxes throughout the villages so that people can drop off their expired pharmaceuticals at any time instead of just having to hold them. That's my kids when they were really, really little. They're 17 and 14 now. My daughter just accepted her acceptance into University of Central Florida, and she's about 10 there. So we try to be a good community partner. Unfortunately, we partnered with Villages in October of 2020, and so a lot of the public programs that we really wanted to work on weren't happening because of the pandemic and the pandemic protocols. But we look forward to being a partner with the Villages for many, many years to come. And so you will see us. Actually, it's Kenny Blocker who's speaking next month. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago when they did the Public Works event. There was a lot of people who were asking about what we did, and Jacobs was there, but we weren't aware of the event. I said, hey, he said, next year you definitely have to be there. I'm like, we will be there for sure. We want to get the message out, and we love the questions, and it's forums like this. Since unfortunately right now we're not doing public tours, we're hoping to do an open house sometime in April on a Saturday where we feed everybody and everybody can come through and actually tour the facility. So we're working on that as we speak. But the questions and the emails, and I encourage you to go to our website. Our YouTube channel has wonderful videos, and that's pretty much all I got. Here's the fun part. Questions.
Are you a public or a private corporation?
We were public until December of 2021. We were Ogden Martin for many, many years, which got bought out by Covanta. And then we were purchased by a private entity in December of 2021, a company called EQ2 Partners based out of Sweden, who are very familiar with the waste energy industry. One of the things that I think really is going to be helpful there is that instead of having to think about dividends, all those dividends that would normally go to stockholders, they're reinvesting back into the company because the majority of these plants are 30 to 35 years old. And so there's some major life preservation projects for these facilities that need to be done. And so I think the timing of it is very, very good. In the next probably 5 or so years, we may go public again. It's very possible.
Okay, the village is growing. Are you going to be able to handle the additional waste that we're generating in the future?
Yes, sir. We have a growth curve set up for the villages for exactly that reason. We trust me. I live in Tampa. I come up 75, and our plant is just off 470. So my commute in the last 12 months has changed fairly drastically, I have to say. Because 12 months ago, I was driving past the jail and through cattle country, and not so much anymore. So yes, we are planning for that. Yeah, exactly.
My question is three parts. So unless I misunderstood you, at the beginning of your presentation, you basically talked about recyclables and kind of glossed over that, and I got the impression that virtually none of the stuff that comes from the villages is being recycled. Things like bottles, cans, cardboard, paper, old carpets, carpet padding, that all goes into the hopper.
Correct.
Okay.
However, all of the metals,
Right,
ferrous and non-ferrous, so cans,
right, understood.
all the ferrous and non-ferrous metals are being recovered post-combustion.
Which brings me to the second part of the question.
Sure.
Which is, so everything's going in the big hopper, which is going to get incinerated, which includes things like synthetic carpets and carpet padding and various hazmat items that villagers are known to sneak into their trash, myself included, and I would put myself in that. So that all gets burned up, which creates fly ash, which you did address here, and you said, okay, and this is the third part of the question. The fly ash is created, and you kind of glossed over, is that ever tested? And what happens to that fly ash?
The fly ash is actually mixed in. Well, let me get to the first part of your question. As I said, the metals are recovered. We do load inspections, visual load inspections when all the trucks come in. So we try to eliminate any of those potential snuck in hazardous materials prior to anything going into the pit and going into the hopper. If it does get in there, our air pollution control technology can handle any potential hazardous emissions that could come from that material, because it's, again, what's in your trash bag, it might be one item. When you're talking about burning 48 tons per hour, the amount that is contributing to those emissions, our air pollution control systems can handle, which is why we have the lime that's going to handle any heavy metals. I mean, any of the acid gases, and the carbon that's going to handle any of the heavy metals. moving on to the fly ash piece of it, what we do is we actually mix the fly ash back in with the bottom ash. So it becomes a blended ash, and we test that ash every 6 months to make sure that there's nothing hazardous in it. Again, because that's an internal protocol. The DEP protocol is every 3 years that we have to test it, but our internal protocol is we test it every 6 months to make sure that we're not putting anything hazardous, letting anything hazardous leave the property.
First, I'd like to say hats off for a very complete production. Understand what's going on there. My question being, on your RX program, do you accept hypodermic needles?
Our facility is actually, it's not under that program. We do actually have a permit to handle regulated medical waste, which includes sharps. So a sharps program would have to be a totally separate program from the pharma program, but it's not something that's out of the question, because as long as it's regulated medical waste, we are permitted by the Florida DEP to process that material. Oh yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and actually from a federal standpoint, there's some movement there. There's some traction there that it's called EPR. It's producer responsibility program that the federal government is pushing back on some of these generators and some of these manufacturers that they have to provide an outlet for the finished product. So that's something that you will see some traction from in the next couple of years. It wouldn't be out of the question for us to set up some type of similar program to the pharma program when it comes to sharps. If you take your stuff back to a Walgreens or a CVS, or I know it's hard, I know it's difficult. A lot of them give you a lot of pushback. I think you'll see some change there because there's pushback from the federal government that they're now pushing some of this responsibility back to the pharma companies and the partnerships with the pharmacies who are distributing their prescriptions.
So you've been circling around my question, but I want to be very direct. Is there any kind of waste that might come out of my household or does come out of my household that should not go into the trash bag at the curb?
That is a wonderful question. Obviously, anybody who is doing any at-home chemo, something that we definitely do not want. Batteries, we'd much prefer that you recycle them. Electronics, household electronics, absolutely. Those are things that absolutely. And I mean, and again, that's why we do visual inspections of the loads when they come. When things dump out onto the tipping floor. I mean, people throw out bowling balls. People throw out, propane tanks. People, so it's something that my floor staff is continually watching what's coming out of these trash trucks. And if we and what happens is if we see a flagged item, we'll go back to the hauler and say, hey, this truck number came in at this time, and then it's up to them to go back to say, okay, what route was that? Where were we picking up from, to get an idea. But again, medical waste, anything radioactive, batteries, electronics, definitely something we do not want.
Yeah, hi. You did a seminar at one of my meetings before, and one thing that you impressed upon, and we all were impressed, the fact that it's almost like a closed system. The truck picks it up and goes right to your facility. Because I remember the woman asked you, she says, so I don't have to shred my stuff anymore, and you said, no, you don't.
No.
Because it's a closed
Okay,
system.
so I've worked for Covanta for 8 years. My wife still has a shredder in the office. I'm like, honey, give me the bag. I will go up to the 5th floor and drop the bag in the hopper myself. Because everything that's coming to us, it's going into a 2,000 degree furnace.
Yeah, hi, I got 3 questions. One, what do you do with, does it glass, does that produce any energy, or is it just,
It's not helpful. It has no BTU value, it has no heating value, so it basically just goes through the process, gets crushed up and becomes part of the ash stream.
okay. And then do you have competitors in Florida?
There are 3 facilities that we do not operate in Florida. So 7 of the 8 facilities that we operate in Florida are actually owned by the municipalities, by the counties, and we built them for the counties back in the 90s, and we've been the operations and maintenance contractor for them since the plants have been operational. There's one company called Wheelabrator, which was formerly owned by Waste Management many years ago and is now owned by another private equity firm, but they sold off most of their assets. There's one facility in the state of Florida that's being run by Wheelabrator, and then the city of Tampa runs their own facility, and I'm missing one.
Well, that's okay. I just
City of Tampa runs theirs. Wheelabrator runs the one in South Broward, and we run the other 8 in the state.
Okay, thank you. One other question. You had mentioned that, like, for instance, it costs $40 for a ton to get dropped off at a landfill and $60 to go to you guys. But you guys are making other revenue streams with the money going by your generation of electricity. You charge it to you get money from the power companies. You sell the metals and things like that. With the price of electricity going up, do you guys charge more for the power that you sell to them? And will it, well, I mean, I don't know what your expenses are, probably labor and materials and stuff like that, but could it actually be a cheaper solution for us in the villages to go to you eventually?
It could be. I mean, primarily the electricity is based on whatever the market price is, and then there's a capacity factor that adds in there. And right now it's something that, any type of sustainable energy supply is more costly than a fossil fuel driven energy supply. But it's usually index based on whatever the market demand price is, whether it be hour by hour or so and then it's could be a 24-hour average or a monthly average, but it's something that the fact that some of the energy that's provided to the villages is sustainable energy. And in the state of Florida right now, the renewable energy credits have not been monetized yet, but they're on the road to getting there. So in the Northeast, they have been monetized, but Florida is very close to getting to that. So now those renewable energy credits then carry value. It's basically like a rebate value. So, but we're not quite there yet. Oh, absolutely.
So this sounds like a great way to get rid of the garbage and not create a lot of pollution. My concern tonight, though, is the things that I'm putting in my trash that should be recycled, such as newspapers and plastic. I understand that you're doing ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal, but what about the newspaper? And what does Germany do with the recyclables? There must be a market somewhere for them that we're missing out on, and I find that a concern. I don't like to see trees cut down, and we should be recycling paper and plastic.
A 100% valid concern. Got to give you a little bit of a history lesson here. So prior to 2008, 75% of all of the global recyclables being generated were being purchased by China. Okay? So China was building for the Beijing Olympics in 2008. What happened was they got all their buildings built, and they were paying top dollar. And not just the United States, globally, all the recyclables that were being collected, China was buying them. And they finished building all the buildings at the beginning of 2008 for the Olympics, and they stopped buying them. So now, all these recyclables that were being exported now have landed in the domestic market, and all of a sudden the domestic market is flooded with material. I was working for Waste Management at the time. Cardboard, fiber, very valuable. Cardboard went from $275 a ton to $15 a ton in 2 weeks. So, the average recycling facility, material recovery facility, where all these recyclables are getting sorted, the average operations cost is about $60 to $70 a ton. So you had a lot of mom and pop recyclers who would say, oh, I'll pick up your cardboard for free. No problem. Well, cardboard was $275 a ton. So it might cost them $15, $20 a ton to get in their truck, come get the recyclables from the Villages or the Bonefish Grill or the Target or the CVS or the Publix, and they're making $250 a ton. Well, if it costs them $25 a ton to pick it up, or it costs the Waste Management $70 a ton to process the material, and they're only selling it for $15, all these mom and pops went out of business. Waste Management was one of the only companies that had the financial wherewithal to stack all this material. And I went to the landfill in South Florida in Pembroke Pines, and you're talking about 2,000 pound bales of cardboard that are 6 feet wide, 2 feet high, 3 feet wide, stacked up twice as high as this ceiling, as wide as this room, and as far as the eye could see. Rows and rows and rows of it. Because if it's costing them $70 a ton to process it, why are they going to sell it for $15? So Waste Management had the financial wherewithal to be able to hold on to that material until the market somewhat recovered and they could get to break-even point. All the mom and pops went out of business. So now this recycle market recovers 2010, 2011. China starts buying material again. The accepted contamination rate for recyclables is 10%. Industry-wide, that's been the acceptable number. China decides all these people are trying to smuggle trash into China with their recyclables. So they changed that number from 10% to 5%. So now we're sending containers all the way across to China just to get them turned around and sent back. So then in 2016, China changes that number from 5% to 0.5%. So now you have a whole truckload of recyclables that has a couple of dirty pizza boxes or one bag of trash, and that whole load is contaminated. Orange County, Orlando, they buried 70,000 tons of recyclables in a landfill 2 years ago because they couldn't find anybody to buy in the material. So as a result, when we started these conversations with the Villages in 2019, the average recycle price was I want to say it was $45 a ton, and then there was some rebate involved. And the new price would have been $145 a ton with no rebate. So it would have been 4 times as much as what the Villages was currently paying. So that's the biggest challenge, is that the market isn't there. And unfortunately, it goes back to when somebody came up with the great idea, and it was Waste Management, to say single stream recycling, we want increased participation. Back in the day, when I was a kid, we'd go to the recycle center, and you'd put the cardboard here, and the newspaper here, and the white paper here, and the green bottles here, and the brown bottles here, and the clear bottles there, and the plastic there. You're source separating. So there's very little cost to get that material ready to go to market. Then, in order to increase participation, now just throw it all in one can and we'll separate it, because the markets were great. But when the markets took a dive, all of a sudden, the costs associated with doing that recycling and doing the separation, it became a negative economic model. So they had to raise the prices. And I was part of that. in 2008. What do you mean I have to start paying for recycling? I've always made money on recycling. Well, the market's dictating now you have to pay for it. So, well, and you joke about it, but it's very true. Think about all the online shopping over the last 3 years. The amount of cardboard has more than quadrupled. And now Amazon is starting to institute a program to take those boxes back or reduce the packaging. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten something from Amazon this big, and I get it in a box that's this big with a whole lot of bubble wrap. You know, so again, that's why that first R of recycling is reduce. Is reduce the amount of what we generate and what we have to handle after the fact. You see this? I've been carrying this for 15 years because single-use plastic water bottles, just the United States alone generates enough single-use plastic water bottles, PET plastic water bottles, to wrap around the earth 2 times every week. Okay? You put that PET bottle in landfill, it's going to be there for 750 years. So it's about education. It's about changing the thought process of what we generate. And I apologize for getting off on this tangent, but that's the bigger conversation. I understand your concern. It's a very valid concern. One of the things that we did when I negotiated the contract with the NSCUD board and with the villages is that we revisit the recycling market every year. And if the recycling market gets to the point where it makes financial sense for the villages and its constituents to reactivate the curbside recycling program, where it's not going to be an additional cost to the residents, we have that option to make that modification on a year-over-year basis. Because that was a big concern for the board. To say, we know that we're going to get a lot of pushback, but from a financial standpoint, this is what we need to do right now. And I said, look, I don't want the plastic bottles. I prefer not to get them, because for every 1 ton of plastic that I take into my plant, it's the same as taking in 3 tons of regular trash. So my plant productivity, because the BTU value is 18,000, whereas regular garbage is 5,000. So I'd prefer not to have it. Can I handle it? Yes, I can. Can our emissions, our air pollution control systems handle it? Yes, it can. But we'd prefer not to have it. So I was very open to saying, let's do this evaluation. Let's have a sit down every year. And if these commodities regain value, we'll make an adjustment. And the villages will start up their recycling program again. I apologize. I can talk a blue streak. I'm a garbage man from New York. I apologize.
Okay. Okay. Do you sell electricity to Duke and Seco?
We sell the majority of our electricity generation to the city of Winter Park.
Okay.
But it's through the Duke system.
And then how are we in the villages, how are we in the villages getting something out of this? By lowering perhaps our trash costs?
Well, yeah, if you had stayed with the program that you were on before, your trash costs would have gone up significantly. And that's something that either way your cost was going up, with our program, it didn't go up quite as much. Basically is what it comes down to.
Over here. Over here. Two-part, actually my biggest question is, what about composting, things like that, natural waste, things like that? Where does that come? How do you guys come into that?
We don't do any composting at the moment at the facility. It's something that that would have to be done prior. That's more of a question for the solid waste department, if they wanted to start a composting program. But it's something that, again, composting is it can be very costly on a commercial basis.
I gotta stop. What? No, stop. She'll get a chance. I made a mistake. I don't make many mistakes that I admit to. We have something I have to do. We have somebody that we're inducting into the POA Hall of Fame. Somebody that I work with for a long time. Peg, come up here. Peg Tackett was Bill Shikora's fiance. Boy, my mind, I don't know where the hell it was tonight. At any rate, Peg, on behalf of the POA, the Property Owners Association of the Villages Incorporated inducts Bill Shikora into the POA Hall of Fame in recognition of your steadfast service to the POA as membership director and a board member from 2012 to 2020, and for your ongoing commitment to the POA. He also was a District 2 supervisor. He gave more to this community than you people will ever know. He was a dear, dear, dear friend of mine. I miss him dearly. Peg, on behalf of the POA,
and I just had a short comment. Bill's goal in life was to do what he could do to improve life in the villages, and he worked hard at it. He did his homework before he made his presentations. He worked hard at it, and if things got hard, if people objected or whatever, he just kept right on going because he had a sense of what was right and wrong for living in this community. He loved the villages, and he loved the years he spent here.
thank you. On behalf of the POA, you know what Bill meant to me. Thank you, hon. Okay, go ahead, Gare.
Last one?
Last question. Go ahead.
I raised my hand first. I should be the last question. I'm following with the gentleman here and the lady over there. I was looking at the population of the villages, Okahumpa and Winter Park, and the villages has the largest population, and you're selling the energy to Winter Park. But if you sell more energy to other cities or towns, would that be reflected back in a less cost to the villages because we're providing the most trash?
Actually, right now, I mean, the power purchase agreement with the Winter Park was set up in 2014, and it's a 10-year power purchase agreement. We are selling basically the most that we can generate to the city of Winter Park, so we can't generate it anymore because unless we expanded the facility. So what we sell is what we, we're pretty much maxed out. So it's something that now. One of the things is we've been talking with the villages. We're hoping when the existing power purchase agreement expires in 2024, we can enter into a power purchase agreement with the villages, but we now have to get Seco to play nice. We have to get Seminole Electric to play nice. We have to get Duke to play nice. Because the villages has an exclusive purchase agreement with Seco, who has an exclusive purchase agreement with Seminole Electric. So we've been working on it. We've been talking about it for a year, and 2025, it might be a challenge to get it to happen by then. But we are working towards that goal. And I know that you guys are done. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to answer more once the meeting closes.
Okay.
But I just want to say thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Patrick, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. We have donuts and coffee in the back, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you.
Collect that material.